Marisol Vega's first memory of Seattle was the rain, a fine silver mist that hung suspended between street lamps and skyline, so delicate she could taste it on her tongue like spun sugar. On the day she arrived from Albuquerque 5 years and 8,000 double-shot orders ago, she watched the drizzle slide off the link light rail windows and felt it draw stories out of her, the songs her abuelo hummed, the handwritten recipe cards her mother left behind. The heat of desert asphalt at noon, the moisture seemed to drink her recollections as eagerly as the parched city once drank monsoon storms. She never forgot that uncanny tug, even after the memory turned ordinary, then habitual, like the hiss of a milk steamer, in her new life behind the counter at Cloud 9 Coffee Roasters. Cloud 9 sat on Pike and 4th, 2 blocks from the waterfront where ferries rumbled toward Bainbridge. The shop's name was kitsch, the sort of branding Marisol normally rolled her eyes at, but it earned forgiveness every morning when the actual clouds rolled in low enough to kiss the neon sign. Regulars joked that the cafe possessed a microclimate all its own. None suspected it was truer than metaphor. None, that is, until the Thursday. Marisol frothed a pitcher of oat milk, called a rosetta, too perfect to waste, and watched a miniature cumulonimbus form above her cup. It was no bigger than a dandelion puff, but it sparked pale blue inside, as if the foam was storm-charged. A single drop escaped and landed on the counter, releasing the scent of petrichor and wet cedar. Marisol blinked, half convinced fatigue had conjured a hallucination, yet the evidence remained, a swirl of mist hovering over latte art. She hurried the drink to the waiting customer, a programmer named Unhi who nursed heartbreak along with espresso. A tiny cloud drifted above Uni's head, bursting into a feather-light shower that slicked her bangs and vanished before anyone else noticed. Uni lifted her face, startled, then smiled with an ease Marisol had never seen from her. The pain seemed washed clean. Marisol passed the incident off as caffeine-induced dajo until it repeated. A lavender brevet for a graduate student cramming for finals produced a purple-tinged fog that followed them out the door and lingered over the sidewalk like incense. A mochaccino for a sleep-deprived ferry captain generated a crisp, briny drizzle that reminded Marisol of seawalls and moonlit tides. Every drink she crafted carried an emotion beyond taste. A weather front tuned to the drinker's hidden longing. Word spread fast, because Seattleites love nothing more than exotic precipitation. Soon Cloud 9's line stretched around the block, umbrellas bobbing like colourful mushrooms. Managerial euphoria collided with Marisol's rising terror. She spent evenings studying meteorology forums, arcane brewing manuals, even her grandmother's folk tales about Aztec rain deities. Nothing explained how Latte became barometric sorcery until the night she closed the cafe alone and heard laughter above the espresso machine. A tinkling chime that smelled of lightning. On the ceiling shimmered 3 translucent figures, one shaped of pearl-grey vapor, another stitched from charcoal cumulonimbus, the third woven of cirrus filaments so fine they were nearly invisible. Their eyes held whirlpools, their hair trailed mist, and their presence thinned the air like high altitudes. Marisol froze, portafilter still in hand. "Child of warm deserts," the cirrus spirit whispered, voice rustling like wind through prairie grass. "You taste the history in our tears." The cumulonimbus-shaped spoke next, thunder low in its chest. "Your milk and beans steep the memories we brew in the sky. You serve them foamed and sweet, but they are dangerous unbottled." Marisol managed a wobbling syllable. "Who?" "We are the Pluviarchs," said the pearl-grey spirit, "stewards of Seattle's rain. Each droplet is memory, distilled from cloud to street, so Earth remembers itself. Tonight, our cauldrons above Lake Union shattered. The memories leaked, and you brewed them into coffee." Marisol exhaled a shaky laugh. "That's beautiful and completely terrifying." Indeed, boomed the cumulonimbus. Someone has tampered with our craft. A mortal with machines stitched from greed. Images spun across the ceiling, sleek drones hovering in storm heads, siphoning vapor into glass canisters, a laboratory glowing cobalt, shelves lined with precipitation swirling like captive ghosts. At the center, a tall figure in an immaculate charcoal grey suit, Adrian Rourke, founder of Rourke Dynamics. Marisol recognized him from the tech conference banners plastered downtown. His face was patent leather, polished, uncreased, made to glint under stage lights. The city called him a visioner. The Pluviarchs called him thief. He bottles storms, Marisol asked. Memories, corrected the Pearl Cloud. Rainfall, stripped of meaning, becomes mere data. He will sell curated weather to billionaires, grief for actors seeking depth, nostalgia for politicians craving votes, bliss for lovers who cannot summon it themselves. The sky will hollow, Marisol swallowed. Why me? I'm just a barista. You are the bridge, said the cirrus gently. Our leak flows through your craft. Mend it, or the temperate balance of this city and perhaps all sky-kindled will collapse. Then, as abruptly as summer sun, the Pluviarchs dissolved, leaving only condensation dripping from the ceiling tiles. Marisol stood in the hush, heart pounding like a tam-tam drum. She spent the night on the cafe sofa, coat for blanket, mind swirling with caffeine, an impossible duty. At dawn, she texted the only person she trusted for conspiratorial counsel. Her roommate Felix, amateur climatologist, professional cynic, and possessor of a scooter whose brakes screeched like banshees. They met outside the shop. The city smelled of sweet dough from a nearby bakery and briny fog rolling off Elliott Bay. Felix listened, helmet tucked under one arm. You're saying Seattle's drizzle is sentient memory juice and Rourke's stealing it. Neat. And these sky ghosts chose you to stop him because Latte foam. That's the gist, Marisol said. He shrugged. I followed stupider plots on Reddit. Rourke Dynamics is demoing their new Atmos mod tech this weekend at the Summit Center. We could crash the unveiling, see what they're hiding. Marisol's stomach rebelled at the thought of confronting a billionaire in a convention hall packed with badge-clad devotees. But coffee had trained her in high-pressure multitasking. She nodded. I'll brew us cloud cover. Over the next 48 hours, they experimented. Marisol pulled endless shots, tweaking ratios, milks, syrups, searching for whether she could steer. They documented outcomes on Felix's whiteboard. Cardamom cortado equals early morning mist, espresso con panna equals brief sunbreak, matcha espresso fusion equals hail the size of sea salt. Control required intention. Think of an emotion while pouring the milk, and the beverage externalized it. Power surged through her fingertips like steam heat. Day of the launch arrived, slate grey and blustery. The Summit Center tower downtown, its glass facade reflecting low clouds like a second vertical sky. Inside, the atrium buzzed with investors and media. Rourke Dynamics banners proclaimed, "Own the weather, own tomorrow." Marisol wore a caterer's uniform, borrowed from a friend who'd bailed last minute. Crisp white shirt, black vest, a tray of sample lattes balanced on one palm. Each cup held to drink, carefully tuned, not to soothe, but to sow turmoil, in specific measure. Felix escorted her, masquerading as a camera operator. They slipped past security and entered the demo hall. At the center stood a cylindrical chamber of frosted glass, cables umbilical to humming servers. Labels printed along its base read, Storm Cell Alpha. Adrian Rourke stepped onto the stage, chemlight halo outlining his sculpted haircut. In a world plagued by climate unpredictability, he declared, atmospheric stability is the ultimate commodity. Imagine on-demand rainfall for drought regions, curated snowfall for tourism, personalized weather to complement your mood. With Storm Cell, we liberate humanity from nature's whims. Polite applause rippled like plastic. Rourke gestured, An assistant tapped a tablet. Inside the cylinder, dark vapor spun, condensed, and released a sprinkle onto simulated farmland dioramas. Cameras flashed. Investors nodded, seeing dollar signs. Marisol tasted metal on her tongue, the same flavor that lingered in the cafe when the pluviarchs appeared. The moisture in Storm Cell wasn't inert. It vibrated with memory, stifled and straining. She had to free it. Winding through the crowd, she offered samples. A honey chili flat white served to a venture capitalist conjured sudden, dizzying heat, fogging his designer glasses. A rosebud cappuccino handed to a journalist bloomed petals of rain that turned into whispers from her grandmother, leaving the reporter in tears. Small chaos, enough to distract security as Felix crept toward the main console. Finally, Marisol stood before Rourke himself. Up close, his eyes were the color of sheet metal in thunderlight. "A latte, Mr. Rourke? Compliments of Cloud 9, she said, steadying her voice. He studied the foam art, a spiral galaxy dusted with cocoa. "Caffeine is counterproductive for vision," he said, though he accepted the cup. "But I'm a patron of small businesses." He sipped. Marisol had infused the drink with a monsoon's worth of her own memories, dusty New Mexico arroyos flooding with first rain, the smell of mesquite, the lullaby of Spanish hymns. Rourke's expression flickered, as though tasting a flavor outside the human spectrum. He set the cup down, untouched again, suspicion clouding his features. "Who authorized catering?" he snapped. "Too late." A hush spread. Above the storm cell, clouds coalesced into the forms of the pluviarchs. They strafed the air vents and soared across projector rigs, visible to all now that captive memories were resonating. Gasps erupted, phones lifted in unison, streaming the impossible. The cumulonimbus spirit's voice rolled like distant artillery. "Adrian Rourke! You have siphoned the rain soul. Cease or drown in what you caged." Rourke straightened, face composure incarnate. "Spectacle!" he barked to the crowd. "Observe our proprietary aerosol holograms, proof of concept." He signaled security. Guards advanced, tasers clipped to belts, uncertain whether to arrest phantasms or baristas. Felix yanked a cable from the console. Alarms shrilled. The cylinder's glass cracked. Spiderweb fractals lit electric blue. Steam hissed out, then torrential release. A column of stormwater erupted, smashing exhibits, drenching onlookers. The memories poured free like stampeding horses, each droplet singing with lived moments. A soldier's goodbye, a child's first bike ride, a widow's final embrace. The hall transformed into a cathedral of shared experience. People wept, laughed, collapsed to knees as the rain impregnated them with empathy. Marisol stood amid it, soaked and exultant. But Rourke recovered, teeth flashing. He snarled at her. "You think sentiment will stop capital? I have backups, patents, factories offshore. Weather is the next data stream, and data always finds monetization." He seized a remote from his pocket and pressed it. Ceiling vents clanged open, revealing drone canisters primed to vacuum the escaped vapor. The pluviarchs howled as cyclonic suction began ripping them apart. Marisol felt panic threaten her grip, but training kicked in. Focus, breathe, pour. She grabbed a fallen paper cup, scooped residual espresso from a spill, frothed the thin liquid with sheer will. No milk, no art, only intent. She remembered every person she'd served. Their small stories, their confessions passed across the counter like forgotten coins. She thought of the city itself, its cranes and murals, its busking saxophones, Ballard locks, Greenwood's donut shop at 2 a.m., all its shared, messy humanity. She poured that feeling toward the ceiling. A warm, golden drizzle radiated from her upturned palm, gentle as sunrise. Where it touched the drones, gears clogged with caramelized condensation, rotors stalled, machines crashed to the floor in sparks. The suction died. The spirits reknit themselves, swirling triumphant. Snarling, Rourke charged Marisol. Before he could reach her, the pluviarchs descended, fusing into a single roiling vortex that enveloped him. Thunder cracked. When the vortex dispersed, Rourke lay on the soaked carpet, eyes vacant, mouth working silently as though searching for lost words. The spirits had not harmed him. Worse, they had given his own pilfered memories back, unfiltered. Every emotion he'd vacuumed from the sky now roared inside him like riptides, too vast for one psyche to catalogue. Paramedics would later classify him as catatonically overwhelmed. Rain eased to a drizzle. The spirits hovered before Marisol, smaller now, almost hummingbird-sized. "Balance restored," whispered the pearl cloud. "Thanks to your art." Felix trudged over, drenched, holding the broken remote like a trophy. "That went better than my last first date," he quipped. But Marisol wasn't ready for jokes. She addressed the Pluviarchs. "The memories are free, but the world's still full of people like him. What stops another from trying again?" "Nothing permanent," admitted the cumulonimbus. "Stewardship is ongoing. We invite you to apprentice, learn our brewing above the skyline. Mortals seldom receive this call." Felix's mouth dropped. "Weather wizard barista, level up." Marisol gazed at the chaotic hall investors consoling each other, journalists scribbling, strangers hugging. Outside the atrium windows, ambulances' strobe lights mingled with late afternoon gloom. She thought of her humble cafe, its chipped mugs and vinyl stools, the comfort it offered daily. "I belong down here," she said softly. "But I'll keep brewing responsibly, and I'll teach others. Maybe that's how we got the rain from the ground up." The spirits nodded. "So be it, Bridge." They shimmered upward, dissolving into the natural cloud banks drifting over Puget Sound. 3 weeks later, Cloud 9 reopened. After emergency plumbing repairs, the Summit Center deluge had backed up half the city's drainage, earning Marisol several stern yet perplexed calls from municipal engineers. Tourists lined up for her memory macchiato, but she served only standard lattes now, no weather included. Still, some customers claimed they tasted hints of déjà vu in the crema, or smelled childhood swing sets in the cinnamon foam. Marisol merely smiled and kept her pause ordinary, saving the magic for when the sky itself whispered need. Rourke Dynamics shuttered its Atmos mod division, faced with lawsuits and regulatory scrutiny. Whistleblowers leaked proof of ecosystem disturbances from earlier storm extractions. Seattle newspapers debated hydroethics, while think piece columnists coined phrases like cloud colonialism. In every article, photo credits captured a modest barista mopping the Summit Center floor amid the chaos, head bowed, rain haloing her hair. She declined interviews. Coffee, she said, was plenty, talkative without her commentary. Felix started a podcast, Forecast Underground, featuring indie meteorologists and folk storytellers. He invited Marisol for episode 1. She agreed on the condition they record from the cafe during off hours. Listeners would hear the steam wand hiss, the grinder burr, and, if they were very keen-eared, maybe the faint laughter of distant pluviarchs echoing in pipes above the ceiling. That December, Seattle experienced its wettest winter on record. Yet something about the storms felt lighter, as if the rain fell not with grey resignation but with multicoloured murmurs, memories eager to share, not to drown. Marisol walked Capitol Hill's streets under a thrift store umbrella patterned with sunflowers, letting droplets kiss her cheeks. Each cool touch carried a vignette, a jazz riff born in 1962, a Pride Parade chant from 93, a whispered apology between sisters last Tuesday. She savoured every story, willing courier of a city's collective heart. One night, closing up, she found a new latte request scrawled on a napkin left by an unknown patron. "Brev of courage, pour for tomorrow's march." She glanced outside where activists gathered signs to protest funding cuts for homeless shelters. The old anxiety pricked. Should she stir weather again? She remembered the Pluviarch's warning, dangerous unbottled. But she also remembered choice. Marisol steamed milk, poured a heart into espresso, and whispered hope into the crema. She carried the cup outside, placed it in the hands of a young organizer with chapped lips. The latte released a gentle, steady drizzle, warm rather than chilling. Umbrellas stayed closed. No one flinched. Instead, they lifted faces, felt resolve soak into skin. Marisol watched the marchers disappear down the hill like a river fed by fresh rain. She didn't try to control where that river flowed. Her task was only to keep its source honest. She returned inside, locked the door, and flipped the sign to closed. Above her, pipes rattled softly like applause.